Go.
And this is the Wisdom Table, coming to you from the Grand Houses residencies in Harlem, USA, at 125th Street and Amsterdam Avenue. And we're thankful to the Most High for blessing us with the opportunity to be with you, you to be with us. Once again, the Wisdom Table is a workshop of female senior women who are not present today. I'm the co-host and the leader of the workshop. It's the only workshop in the USA that has women from housing developments who are learning how to operate their own show. And in time, you're going to hear their voices. But in the meantime, this program does not reflect the views, attitudes, whims, needs, or any other proclivities of the management of this NYCHA development, nor does it reflect on the resident council of this Grand Houses. However, the program does reflect the research done by the participants in the program, live in living color and by Zoom. Today, we have a young man who we plan to do a series of interviews with because the subject matter is new to many and most of us. It's new from the standpoint of that area of business that Black people have been they pioneers in pharmacy. And today, 220, 219, 2018, 2017, a group of Black pharmacists throughout the US have been finding it very difficult to earn a honest and a decent living. The culprit in this particular case are agents within the DEA establishment. And we say agents within that because many government agencies are used by individuals for their own particular purposes and behavior. So we're not saying the whole pack. Now, before we get into the show, just in terms of context, there's a gentleman who's an author. His name is Michael Levine. He's written a lot of books on drug trafficking coming out of South America. He had a program here in New York City on WBAI for quite some time. And we had the occasion to interview him some years ago. But in those programs that he had on WBAI, there were quite often mention of DEA illegal activities. And we say this so there's not us saying that the actions of the DEA is beyond the law, not within the law, but has culprits who are operating on their own, but with the DEA as a cover. So to uncover this story for us today in this segment is Brother Clement. He's a pharmacist, dentist, and has a number of degrees. Brother Clement, thank you for joining us on the Wisdom Table.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
All right, so let's start here. Just in terms of your background, you hold degrees that allow you to do dentistry and pharmacy.
That is.
And the fact is, so you're operating in both of those areas at one time. Now you're in pharmacy. Just give a quick journey of the dental leading into pharmacy.
Well, actually, it was the other way around. I was a pharmacist. I went to Florida A&M University to be in a marching band, and I from Detroit, and I was always wanted to go into medicine, and we at Florida A&M had a pharmacy school, so I got into the pharmacy school at Florida A&M. I finished in 1975, practiced pharmacy for maybe about 2 years straight on. And then I went to dental school at the University of Michigan. And from there, I had when I left there, I went and opened up a practice in Tallahassee. Then I went and again, some difficulties with the government. And this is where they were targeting Black doctors during the 80s and 90s. They still do for Medicaid and Medicaid transactions and Medicare. It became a convenient way of getting rid of us by many states' accounts. That venture turned into a congressional investigation.
You're tuned in to GHCR.NYC,
Am I still
Grant Houses Community Radio.
okay? So make it long story short, I practiced both pharmacy and dentistry. And Michigan came back to Florida, opened up my own pharmacy. Am I still there? Yeah, pharmacy, and here we are. It's called Pronto Pharmacy. So,
Okay, and at what point did you come into contact, or the DEA make contact with you, and the various infractions?
first time I
occur?
came, in fact, there are no infractions here. My first time was in 2012, and actually, they came to my place looking for somebody else, and they came in.
Somebody else being a pharmacist, or someone else being whatever?
They were looking for another pharmacist. That guy went to prison. Okay. But it was because I had bought some of the equipment and some other things from him to open up this pharmacy. He was here as a consultant, and they were getting him for prior involvement. They came to my place and seized my equipment. And we had talked about this before, where they had taken quite a bit expensive equipment, and I never got that money. I never got that back. The also thing was then in 2016 or 2017, they appeared, and under the pretext they wanted to come in here and inspect us for they call it an administrative warrant. And at that time, I looked at the warrant. I said, "Well, listen, my attorney told me that as we have instructed to he needed to be present before any warrants were issued, before we respond to any warrants," and they left. And then about 5 months later, they came back again, okay, looking for records. And they came and looked at our records, and there's nothing, nothing wrong with our records. And then they came back several times. And long story short, back in August of 2019, they came in here, about 35 of them. And I guess we can call that a raid, seized my equipment, seized all the medication they were dispensing, and accused us of filling prescriptions illegally, not doing a corresponding responsibility. Of course, that's ridiculous. And some of the charges were like patients were driving too far, long distance travel, cash payments, excessive cash payments, high dose medications. And also they said they did an investigation and looked at our record and turned to find out they never did that. And then we uncovered the fact that they had done this throughout the country to about maybe 15 owned Black pharmacies. And as I stated last time, we somehow all got together, or some of us all got together, and we recognized that, hey, all of us have been doing this, and we've been compounding. We were charged with the exact same violations as this called administrative warrants, where we were ordered to show cause, and all of those were deemed public health threats. And so we had to go through this process. And so we found out that even the warrants, not only were they were identical down to the same spelling errors. And so, and that's the process that we find ourselves in now. We have 4 of us who were fighting like crazy, and another 3 or 4 of us who were on the outside of going to various phases of this. And we've developed a column. I started writing about it because we saw the injustice in their court system. The DEA has a separate court system. We call it a kangaroo court. And simply put, we developed this column called "You Are Within the Norms," and we started documenting and showing pictures of what the Drug Enforcement Agency was doing. In other words, it's turning out to be targeting of Black healthcare providers. We say that Tulsa Tampa is Tulsa as it is now, and that this is done to undermine us, to keep drive black folk out of the field of pharmacy. And to this day, none of us have done nothing wrong in terms of any violations. Or they accuse us of diversion, for example. Well, where's the diversion? All the prescriptions that our businesses fill are legal. They come from the physician. We do the normal check due diligence in our checking, because we do have fraudsters out here. We do have people who try to just come to pharmacies looking for certain types of medication, and we do due diligence to prevent that. And all of the things that you're supposed to do as pharmacists, we've done, and yet that doesn't seem good enough with the DEA. This is a organization that has gone rogue. And what they've done is not only they've threatened, they're redefining medical procedures, medical protocols. It amounts to simply harassment and targeting. And we've exposed this in these articles here. For example, of role models and invisible men. We have an article here that deals with how black pharmacists are in imminent danger to public health. In order for you to be in imminent danger, you have to have killed someone, but that's not the case. They seem to move in and out of their charges, and those sort of things. So I think people need to get an idea that this is an attack on black businesses and to run us out of these professions. It is well-defined, well-orchestrated. It is something that is AG Barr and the Trump administration. It is orchestrated, and they're trying to take what is pharmacy as we have been taught and trained to do, and make it into drug trafficking and criminal and criminality, criminalizing.
Okay. All right, Doc. Doc, the document that was used against the 14 some odd pharmacists, what was that document, and what does it charge, or the allegations in it, and what's the source? It comes from one source or a regional source?
Absolutely, it comes from a regional one source. Actually, this is a copy of this is the document done to one pharmacy here. First of all, it comes from the United States Department of Justice Drug Enforcement out of Virginia. It's signed by the head of the DEA. All of these documents are headed by DEA. And in fact, that DEA head at the time was Utam Dillian, and he was an acting DEA director. Okay. The charges, it starts with an order to show cause, immediate suspension of your registration. That registration is important for a pharmacist in that that order anything, any type of medication, any kind of drug, it gives you credibility. All right. And so it allows you to participate and act as a pharmacist. And it's important that it also allows you to order and dispense controlled medications. Okay. And so they give this notice that these pharmacists are in violation of laws. For example, it says that we failed to show due diligence based on an investigation by their DEA expert. In one case we have here, then they cite the legal requirements, and they all identify this out, but it becomes very interesting. For example, this pharmacy was charged with long distance filling prescriptions from long distance. And in there it says that individuals who travel an unusual distance to obtain this prescription are their experts opine that traveling long distance to obtain a controlled prescription is indication of diversion and abuse. and it's a red flag. So
That,
we
wait a
have
minute, that's the
people
wording.
may come. In this case, the guy came 50. That's the wording
Is that,
right here, and you
is
can
that the
find that on
wording
the
in?
internet. I beg your
Wait a
pardon?
minute, wait a minute, wait.
Yes, sir.
The red flag term, that's in that paper?
Yes, it is, and it's throughout this paper. You can see, yeah.
Wait, hold
Oh,
it, please. The 14 or some odd pharmacy that document was sent to, meaning the same document hit all 14.
mhm.
They are geographically dispersed in the US, or are they in one state, one city, etc.?
Geographically dispersed in the U.S. In our case, we had in Florida, we've had like about, I'd say about 8 Black-owned pharmacies that have experienced the same, had the same type of letters sent to them. It always starts with you're an imminent danger, a public health threat. Okay, and you can see this in our column. You're within the norms in the article. Black doctors and Black pharmacists are an imminent threat to public health. Okay, and we have copies of these documents here. And yeah, the red flag issue comes up, and these red flags are they're selective, and there is no law here that says that we have. It talks about red flag. This is red flags we called in one article that says it's Black pharmacists fight the red flag of old Jim Crow, part 1, and this is what we have here.
Okay, how did it come about that this grouping of Black pharmacists
Mhm.
happen to have the same allegation charged against them? How is it that you found yourselves together? Was it an association meeting? Was it a national Black pharmacist meeting? How did y'all come together?
What happened generally was that we had I had an attorney, okay, who specialized. I've had this attorney for about 10 years, okay, and his name is Dale Cisco, and he's a very good attorney that understands pharmacy law, and the physicians rely upon him. And throughout my relationship with him, we worked very closely with him and made sure that we are in compliance with updated laws, policies, and procedures, okay, by the book, and make sure things were written down. We had prompt inspections. He would send someone in and, send someone in to look at our records and make sure everything was up to date and in compliance with any procedures there was. And we were just on top of the things here. You just can't walk in here and even get a prescription without going through an interview and filling out a paper form. But how it is that because of his reputation, he represents pharmacists in many pharmacists and medical professions in as clients. So it just so happened that when they came and attacked me, he came to me maybe about a couple of months later and say, "Hey, there's some other guys that are having the same problem." And in fact, anyway, they're having the same problem. He says, and these guys called me, all right? And I said, and they read their warrants here. This one is from a place called Gulf Med Pharmacy in Naples, Florida, or Cape Coral, Florida. There's one from a guy named that's called At Cost Pharmacy, and the wording was identical. And all of us were graduates of Florida A&M University School of Pharmacy. And
Hold it. I, all of you are graduates of Florida A&M?
That's right.
Now, okay, so I've been saying 14 or some odd, but how many, what's the exact number who were involved?
There's about 14, and that is throughout the country. Okay, in
Right, I
Florida,
understand. But
yeah,
all of the, all, that,
it brought 5 of us together.
it brought 5 of you together out of the 14.
Yes, yes, sir.
But all the 14 were Florida A&M graduates.
No, no, I can't. No, that's not true. All the ones that are in Florida that have been attacked were Floridian, are Floridian graduates. All the ones that got together were Floridian graduates.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The others, what schools did you check that out? What schools they came from?
Some were from like Oklahoma, guys that came from Nigeria, for example. Some were from Oklahoma. They went to school in Oklahoma. Others went to school at Howard. Others went to, some of them had gone to school in London, in England. So it was a variety of programs there. Mm-hmm.
Okay, okay. So the 5 of you who are quote together in fighting this thing, uh,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you're the only grouping, or the Nigerian, is he fighting it? I
One of
think
them,
you
one
and
of them, his name is Martin. And we began to discover cases online too. That's how we discovered that one guy named Martin in Oak Hill, West Virginia, Inju, had gone through this same thing. And I remember calling him up on the phone. And after we built some trust in us, he sent us a copy of this. He talked about it, he gave him an order to show cause. And so we uh, got it, and it was almost identical to what we had experienced in Florida. And it also helped that my brother is a teaches law enforcement. He teaches law enforcement. He's a former police officer, Detroit police officer, and he teaches police law enforcement. And he's got 3 degrees. Okay, so he teaches this stuff, and he got a hold of it, and he said, "Wait a minute, hold of this stuff." And he said, "Wait a minute, these warrants are defective." And they were defective based upon the imminent danger clause that we presented. The other thing, and I think what people need to understand how this becomes racist, in that they accused all of us of seeing patients from these long distances, people paying cash, people they claimed that had excessive amounts of dosages and prescriptions that were written by physicians and verified through our PDMP, or our prescription monitoring drug program. So these were legitimate prescriptions. And they claimed that all these prescriptions from these pharmacies were illegitimate. And it turns out, and not it turns out, however, the very same patients in all these cases that were red flags, and I know you like that word, red flags, are now having the same prescriptions filled at non-Black owned pharmacies and traveling the same distance, the same doctors, paying in the same payment method, and are not red flags anymore.
okay, are you brothers represented by an attorney?
We represented by an attorney named Dale Cisco.
Okay, now what is there a counter move on the part of the pharmacist, or is it just defensive?
No, the counter move is it. Let's put it. Let me explain that process. Just trying to be brief here. The issue here is that once the DEA tags you, you have to go through an administrative law process in order to get your DEA registration back. That process is a kangaroo court. There's no justice at all, because it's a federal court that operates outside federal rules and procedures. So when they come in, you're screwed, and they expect you to quit. The problem that they're having now is that we didn't quit. We all got together and said, hey, there's an injustice here. And it was such an injustice that I began to write about it. And then I began to hear from other people. And so we have to go through an administrative process in order to get outside that process and to go to a regular federal district court. And even then, it doesn't matter. Martin Inju in Oakland, Oak Hill Pharmacy, went through the administrative process, then went to a federal circuit court, and he won. Okay? Won. They had to give him back his federal registration back, and the DEA is still after him. Still came in and want to bring up criminal charges against him now, even though he won. And the State Board of Pharmacy in West Virginia is targeting him again, Martin Inju. So it doesn't matter. It's this whole idea is to put. We've come to realize that this is to put us out of business, to get us. It is ethnic cleansing of Black-owned pharmacies and Black-owned businesses around the country.
What is the sometimes an intellectual examination goes beyond the obvious, and the obvious is what it is. I'm asking, damn. Well,
well, yes.
The amount of business that the Black pharmacists, first of all, you in the inner city,
Mm-hmm.
in Harlem, there's a pharmacy every 5 blocks, if they're not on the same block. There are pharmacies all over the place, side streets, main streets. And I'm not talking about CVS, Walgreens, and Rite Aid and that sort of thing. I'm saying that the number of pharmacies at one point in time, I said, how are they doing business?
Are they?
Well, the business is everybody's on a drug, some kind of prescription drug.
Right.
That's the
right. Were they? Let me ask you a question. Were they Black owned or were they?
Yeah, that's the point I was getting to. These pharmacies are run by foreigners, and they don't have the color brown or Black in them, and
they don't live in the neighborhood either.
They don't live in there. I'm just so
Right.
I'm saying I'm stumbling over saying just how much money could y'all be collecting individually versus the huge number of pharmacies that are run by non-Blacks
Mm-hmm.
in any given area? I mean, for them to just and all of this stuff is coming from the same source.
Okay, let me just say this, is that pharmacies like ours specialize. It's very difficult for a small pharmacy to compete, let's say, against the big boys like the Walgreens, the CVS, the Wrong Aids, and those sort of things. All right. So a lot of pharmacies have developed specialties. Okay. In our pharmacy, we specialize in treating people who are being treated for chronic pain. And that's an area, if you're going to do in this kind of business, you better know what the heck you're doing. And we also did compounding. We're compounding. We still do that here. We still can do that here. And we compounded control medications and other products that are used for the treatment. So it's very, very specific, and it calls for paying attention to detail. Okay. There are other pharmacies, and these Black-owned pharmacies, you see that most of them weren't in Black neighborhoods. There are very few, but they were they're very sophisticated operations. That we have a guy down there in Cape Coral. It is a beautiful building. It has most of his patients are rich white folks. I've worked down there before, and he does not only control medication, but a lot of erectile dysfunction medications. And then he does compounding. His compoundings are steroidal compoundings, basically progesterone and those sort of things for the older populations or women going through menopause and that sort of thing. And then we have another guy who does another type of compounding. Again, he specialized specifically in control medication that he dispenses very little of, and in steroidal compounding. So in order to make a business, go with this business, one, you have to specialize, okay? And two, you just treat people with dignity and respect. If you treat people with dignity and respect, they will come. I don't know how bad, how broke they are or whatever, they will come to you because they will trust you. You have to build a trust with that patient. That's why people come to us. You know, when you're down in there degrading people or you look down on people, I learned that in dentistry too. When you look down on people, stereotype folks, stigmatize folks, you know, they don't come. But when you treat people with dignity and respect, they will come. That's what we do. To treat people as human beings, and people will come, white and black will come to you and says, you know, I never been to a pharmacy where the pharmacist doesn't talk down on me or looks down upon me and those sort of things. And when they come in here, my son's working in this building, you know, how you doing? You know, what you find out what their hobby is, and they'll come in and talk, or they'll talk about the basketball game, the football game, because my kids played football. They'll talk about, you know, professional sports. We'll talk about golfing. You know, just make this a welcome environment, and people will come. And you never know. Some people are, and particularly with controlled medications, a lot of people have been in horrendous accidents. You guys said it was a pull up your shirt. Yeah, I got a gunshot wound. I had pictures of this because we take pictures and we videotape every patient. Nearly every patient comes in here, so we know what they have. And we pay close attention to what they're getting. And the physicians, when you do that, the physicians like working with you, you know, because they know that you're going to treat their patient fairly.
Right.
And that's what brings people in here. You don't have to, you know, you treat people with dignity and you never look down upon them, because that's one thing that we don't, you like some pharmacies have they're elevated a little bit.
Right.
You know, we don't have that. We sit on the same patient. We pass out pins.
Wait. You just pointed out something that exists that we see and don't see, and that's that elevation piece.
Right.
What you said. So that's oh wow. Okay. So look, what I was going on was the amount of money, but it really is the goodwill, the customer service factor that whether they are conscious of it or not, they do see the difference that you folks have a camaraderie with your patients, and the camaraderie is not jeopardized by you guys doing something illegal.
Absolutely.
That aspect of your business of being close to the customer would be jeopardized by an illegal move. So you're not even, you're sensitive to that, and you're not even going in that direction.
No. And the thing is that the people don't understand, the physicians send people our way. They send because you can come here and they know that we're going to treat people. We're not going to stereotype a person. They'll call us and say, well, this is Mr. So-and-so. He's been on a lot of medications. You can check his profile. We can check their profile and see what they're getting and stuff. And I'm sending him to you because he's been going to the Walgreens and the CVS, and the pharmacist wants to depose him when he comes in. Now, let me tell you what happened just in June. The American Medical Association recently issued a letter to the CDC saying that people are being stereotyped, people are being these hardline guidelines, and they want it to stop. This is the American Medical Association issued a 16-page letter stating that the guidelines that both the DEA and the CDC have been using are wrong and should be suspended. You should see that. You will see that in our article called "The Property." And in fact, just going back a minute, I talked about how unfair this process is. I wrote an article. It's called "The Property," and this is a federal judge that came in and he looked at one of these so-called DEA experts. I think you've had a chance to read it. The DEA expert, his name was Don Sullivan. He's a professor at Ohio State University, and he's one of the DEA experts. And he argues that we should have corresponding responsibility and that Pronto Pharmacy didn't fill these prescriptions. They all were illegitimate. And it turns out that he never looked at any prescription because the DEA never sent it to him. Okay.
Damn.
It's right here. And this is what the judge says. The judge says, I have to read this to you. I question the sufficiency of the factual foundation for Dr. Sullivan's expert opinions that the above prescriptions were an apparent attempt to mask scores of improper opioid prescriptions. The relevant medical records were not reviewed. The prescriber's justification for the prescriptions were not considered by Dr. Sullivan, he's a pharmacist, okay? Nor was the patient's input as to the subject of the prescriptions considered. I find Dr. Sullivan's subject opinion on the basis of this record to be
GHR, Grant House's Community Radio, home of the Community News Service.
Expert opinion. All
I'm
right?
sorry, Doc, we just had a station ID. Repeat that last few.
He says, this is the judge named Mark D. Dowd, okay? I find Dr. Sullivan's subject opinion on the basis of this record to be improperly speculative and justified as an expert opinion. Here goes the killer. This finding, and this is why this article is called "The Property." This finding does not affect the property of Dr. Sullivan's opinion as to the therapeutic effect of the subject's medication, their contradictions with other prescribed medication or the justification of their prescription. The property. Have you looked up the word property? What the property is?
No, go ahead.
All right. The property, in other words, what this judge is saying, and when you pull this word up, PROBITY, it means his strong moral principles, honesty and decency, his integrity, his uprightness, his decency, morality, his goodness and virtue. You know, in other words, essentially what it says is it goes back to Dred Scott. There's not a law that a black man has that a white man's bound to respect. There's not an education that you've gotten, Brother Baylor, that I've gotten, or that Michelle Alexander, MD, has gotten, Beverly Pridge, MD, Esther Hyatt, PhD, has gotten, that a white person is bound to respect. That's what he's saying here. That all the education that I've gotten as Florida A&M University, all this STEAM degrees from the University of Michigan, University of Florida, I'm nothing but an uppity, arrogant Negro.
Well, wait, hold tight. What this document says in the first part, that Professor Sullivan's not alleged. It says that Dr. Sullivan's allegations or
opinion.
Well, it seems to be more than opinion. It's
Yes.
a direct statement, which would infer that he saw the prescriptions. And you pointed out that he did not see and examine any of the prescriptions. Is that correct?
He testified to that.
He testified that he had not seen any?
They had not sent him any prescriptions. They had never seen the prescriptions.
But he still rendered a finding that the prescriptions were illegal. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So the federal judge is saying, yo, how could these prescriptions be ruled by you illegal when they weren't even sent to you for you to examine? That's what he says in the first part, right?
Right.
Now, in the second part, where he talks about this probity, is he saying that what I just said, this is the judge, what I just said about your false documentation does not reflect on your expertise in examining said ingredients of the prescriptions.
I don't know. That's up to the judge to decide. But
no. I'm saying what the probity says. What I'm getting is that he says, "Yo, you messed up here, but at the same time, this does not reflect on your expertise in this area."
Yeah, I'm going along with you. I guess that's what he's saying. Yes.
No. I'm just dealing. I'm dealing with because what they do, they speak with forked tongue. On the left-hand side, they saying the man is wrong, and at the same time, they're saying your documentation as an expert, we're not putting that in question here. We're putting your false, fraudulent statement about examining these prescriptions that we can't go along with, because you said on the stand, this is what they're saying to their brother. You said on the stand that you hadn't been sent these things, so we can't rule in favor of that, but at the same time, we're going to say that it does not jeopardize you as an expert in your area.
I'll have to go along with that. But you're much more wiser a man than me.
No.
And you are much more, you are a third party principal here, and I'll have to accept that, because my thing is, it sounds biased to me, but by being a non-biased man and a good man like you, you're being polite. I can see. Yes, sir. Yes.
Well, the thing is, we have to operate on truth, and then on truth, once we establish truth, we can give an assessment or an opinion on that.
Yes,
and that the railroading, you're talking about the railroading of Black people. That's what you're talking about when you say the expertise of Black people is not respected, because in terms of this thing, okay, let me go back. What the judge said, the federal judge said, what was the end result of that? Was stuff thrown out, or was it still held in abeyance, or what?
He ruled against us. They won. The DEA prevailed. Said that he ruled that my registration, my DEA registration, narcotic registration, should be revoked.
Based on what?
Based on his property.
If the man gave, well, I have to get a lawyer in here to explain this thing. But if if the guy lied, the man lied in a document. So that is, the man lied, Sullivan lied in his document. He ruled that the prescriptions were illegal, but he never was sent, he never examined them.
That's correct.
And it's like being charged with a murder and the DNA, the DNA was never examined, and it was blood all over the place. And they could tell that the blood was from 3 different people, but you're found guilty.
That is correct.
DNA wasn't even examined.
That is correct. And in my case, at least the judge, what happens is, in my case, the only reason people know about that is because I'm a writer, and I decided that I was going to publish this whole thing to show people the absurdity of justice to what this is. You know, that this man has testified that we violated the minimal standards of care for Florida pharmacists operating in a usual course of a pharmacy, and then he says that that a pharmacist has 50% responsibility for, and under this law that we have corresponding responsibility. However, federal law doesn't say that. Federal, and this 50, he says, the judge even said, this is another case that he did, that the federal law does not apportion the responsibility of dispensing unlawful prescriptions between a prescribing practitioner and a pharmacist. Rather, federal law imposes separate and independent duties of a prescriber and a pharmacist. And this is a case we call it was a case in Columbus, Ohio, where the pharmacist again was being charged for this distance and not having a co-responsibility. And so but the federal courts in this case, stated that more specifically, the prescriber must act within the usual course of the profession, and it defines what that physician is, and it also defines that the pharmacist is not required to practice medicine. What is required is a pharmacist is responsible not to fill an order that purports to be a prescription that is not for prescription purposes. Okay, I'm shortening the change there. The point is, if all that was true, okay, if all that was true, and these were red flags that the judge were using to come against me and the other pharmacists, then how is it that this red flag, my same patients are now going to white-owned pharmacies, or I'll say non-Black-owned pharmacies, and getting the same prescription filled, thus using the same payment method, and using the same doctor, and there are no red flags. And not only does this happen in Pronto Pharmacy cases, it happens in Gulf Med cases. It happened in the case of Gulf Med Pharmacy in Cape Coral, Florida. It happened in At-Cost Pharmacy in Fort Myers, Florida. It happened with Martin Ninju's Pharmacy in Oak Hill, West Virginia. It happened with Superior Pharmacy in Tampa, Florida. And this guy was a Nigerian guy, and he was so successful. I mean, he had 5 stores, and this guy was making about 200 and he said $200-300 million a year off of these of his business and business practices. This guy was a genius, okay? And they came in and they attacked him based on this distant travel stuff. And he was able to demonstrate, using the same attorney, able to demonstrate he was doing everything correctly and all that stuff, had his expert witnesses there, and he still lost. It comes down to targeting. It comes down to simple targeting. All right. The guy's name is Victor Obi. Victor Obi is this guy's name. He's from Nigeria. And you see this pattern time and time again. And let me tell you something else. There is a guy in Jacksonville, Florida. His name is Albert Chester. He used to play football for Florida A&M University. He was a football quarterback. Okay. He's now a pharmacist. They rated, he was in business 17 months and they rated him. And just last week, and he got so mad, he ran for Congress. Okay. Against a guy named Al Lawson. He lost. But the point is he contacted me because he read about my story, about our story in yourwithinthenorms.com. And he says, this happened to me, Norm. And the sad part is you would think that our organizations our outside organizations would recognize this as an attack on Black-owned pharmacies and Black-owned business, because there are pharmacies that we've tried to contact, Black-owned, that had the same thing, and they won't even talk about it. They're terrified. And they have a reason to believe, because nobody's looked. I mean, I've been out here for I don't know how long, and Aaron and these other guys and Rick Fertel and stuff, and we all it's just fallen on dead ears. And what we are asking is what we've been demanding. One thing we've had some success with. We had success with two people. Okay, the Congress. We've asked Congress to investigate this, and we need to defund the DEA. We've alliance with the drug. Well, I haven't said we've alliance, but we've spoken with people at the Drug Policy Alliance out of New York, and they have demanded that DEA be defunded. And they've talked about the DEA atrocities. You can pull this up on the internet, Drug Policy Alliance, and that these policies are preventing people, and that the DEA has simply exacerbated the illegal drug trade around the world. And it's well documented. I guess your guy documented that too. And we had, we got some help from. I was able to talk about this on Reverend Sharpton's show, okay, for quite a bit of time. The problem is that a lot of these other guys are too scared to call and say, Reverend Sharpton, this is what's happening, it's happening. And finally, I mean, we could just do so much. He always heard from me, but he didn't hear from the other guys. They'll hand me information, but we don't fight for ourselves, what it comes down to. So the Rev has done his job, but we got to get people to say, we got to get folks to say, this is an attack on Black institutions. And not only they're attacking Black pharmacy, but they're attacking Black physicians too, and dentists.
Okay, now.
Yes, sir.
And you personally,
mm-hmm.
Other guys are running scared. We call it, they got rabbit's blood.
Rabbit's blood. Oh.
Rabbit's blood. They running scared.
I like that.
I know that. That's a saying from within the Nation of Islam. They got rabbit's blood. Anytime Minister Farrakhan, when he was running for Jesse Jackson was running. Jesse Jackson was running for president.
Mm-hmm.
So Minister Farrakhan would be the point man. Mm-hmm. He would come into a venue maybe a week ahead. So he came into Harlem a week ahead of Jesse. And they had a committee. This was at a church in Harlem on 116th Street. And just before Minister Farrakhan was announced, the Negro politician, the top Negro politician in Harlem, he got up out of that seat, got the hell out of there, because he didn't want to be photographed on the same stage as Minister Farrakhan. I'm telling you what I seen, not what I heard, because I'm up in the balcony. I'm watching. Saying, let me see if Leroy is saying, let me see if this Negro stay on the stage. That Negro got in the wind. So, personally,
mm-hmm.
when you look at your determination,
mm-hmm.
and other people would say your courage, your persistence,
mm-hmm.
where do you get that from?
Doc, I want to tell you, you know where I get it? I've always had it from my parents, okay? I got a sense of pride. A lot of, I look at it saying that, we must, in this case, in terms of writing, I got that from, I happened, when they attacked me as a dentist years ago, guy turned me on to, I published an article saying, I haven't done anything wrong. And a guy turned me on to C.T. Vivian, okay? And I called CT. I didn't know who he was. I barely knew who he was, man. And I called him, this years ago, man. And I told him about, what had happened to me. And I think I ended up faxing one of these articles. He called me back, or one of us called back. He says, Doc, man, you are on to something. He says, you must organize, okay? And when he talked about movements, moments, movements, and sacrifice, and think tanks, okay? And I had never heard this kind of language before. Boy, and he went on, I said, damn, man, Martin Luther King must have been in real trouble with this brother. This Martin Luther King right-hand man, this guy is something else. And he taught us how to organize our writings, and that we had to do more, and that once we develop this movement, then we can develop a think tank and change policy. And so he introduced us, as we published a number of articles. Our idea was go to Congress and get a congressional investigation. And we were kind of lucky because John Conyers knew C.T. Vivian, Elbert Hatchett up in Detroit, lawyers there knew C.T. Vivian, and he introduced me to Barbara Reynolds, okay? And Barbara Reynolds is a writer. And in the meantime, I had met Esther Hyatt too. And they were all ways at this determination and stuff. And that spirit that he taught us is what brought me on to be determined, and having been in that type of and we were successful in getting a congressional investigation. But, taught us that, you can talk a good game. You could, a lot of us talk a good game, but we be talk a good game, but when it comes time fighting, then it's a different story. And me being a writer, I was not only did I write, I wrote a play that when I first met Esther, one of the things I got tired of the hearing from Black people, especially you say, hey, this is what's happening, so and so, and they would say, oh man, you know how it is, yeah, but you know how it is, and stuff. So I wrote a play called Yeah, But You Know How It Is. You're moving too fast. You haven't paid your dues. CT liked it too, and Esther loves it. But there's a character in that play that I wrote about, okay? It says his name was Reverend Ghost. His name was Reverend Holy Be Ghost. And you know how when we have our meetings, when we have our meetings, every meeting you've been with Black folk, they got to have a prayer, okay?
Yeah.
And so he comes before this commission, and it says, and the play goes, and prayer was given by the Reverend Holy Be Ghost, who was holy on Sunday, but a ghost on Monday. Hadn't seen last off a ring, but the prayer he gave made the whole committee sing. That is synonymous that a lot of us are only holy on Sunday, but when it comes to Monday, we are nowhere to be found. If we believe are we as holy on Tuesday as we are on Sunday? Are we the dentists that go out here and help people and do what we're supposed to do in healthcare on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday as we are on Saturday and Sunday? When we make the money that we have, do we then make sure that the institutions that provided us this education are properly funded and scholarship programs and stuff? And that's how I practice. In other words, you don't hear me talking about religion very much, but I feel that, it's one thing to talk on Sunday about religion, but you make sure that you practice it, the spirit and the goals of the religion every day, and not be a holy be ghost. And I finally found a figure. Barack Obama was talking about John and he said that he talked about it, and he says we must be like John. John Lewis, God, my Alzheimer's sitting here a little bit, and he says, the Lord said to Paul, "Do not be afraid." And we put that video in it. Do not be afraid. You must speak out. You can't remain silent. And I said, dog, man, there's someone in the Bible that behaves just as bad as I do. This is a troublemaker too. So when you find that's where that spirit comes from. And I take it to believe that I won't let anybody sit here and degrade my education and degrade all that I've done. And I tell my kids that, you got in here and you must participate in everything. Do not sit back and say, oh, well, white people do this and black folks can't do that. You must write. You must do research. And I learned a long time ago that when one does research, or better yet, when one does research on you, you have to deal with them from their perspective. When you do research and you write and you publish, people then have to deal with you from your perspective, not their perspective. And that's what made white folks so mad in this case, because we publish, we write, and we let them argue our writings. Let them argue with the science and not with you. Let them argue with the literature and not with you. And that's what builds that spirit in you. Somebody looking at you and looking right through you, and you've got the pharmacy degree and the dental degree and all the stuff that you were supposed to get in the law degree. And then someone says to you, Leo, I also need something that, addresses you in a demeaning way, and stuff like that. And or looks at your education, looks at you and just looks right through you. And you see this action in these federal courts. This guy is the reason you get this decision is because how dare this Negro have this type of credentials based upon him? How dare he? And then we started writing "You're Within the Norms." They started pulling up this work and pulling this work, and I know they did because they brought it into the courtroom that I had written this "You're Within the Norms." And I said, you know what? If they're going to look at my work, then I'm going to write some more.
Right.
And let them write some more. And so we wrote, and at that time I had only written 2 articles, and next thing you know, I've got 60 articles in here and I'm writing another one, trying to finish it up tonight. We must stay, the fight for freedom. It's the same, the fight for freedom is an eternal vigilance. You hear me, my brother? An eternal vigilance. And that's where I get that determination. And I practice what I preach. And I don't talk about that very much, but like when we made all this money at Pronto Pharmacy, one of the things I did was helped the scholarship fund, the University of Michigan, to get blacks to be dentists who wanted to be. You can see that on the internet. $75,000. We got kids from New York that have been in our program. They'll tell you about it. And they apply to New York University. They can apply in there. They go to University of Michigan. Kids that can go there. If your kid want to be a dentist, talk to Todd Esther and get the Lee Jones Scholarship Fund. There's almost $500,000 in that fund right now, should be more, to train and to inspire black children to become dentists and dental specialists. All right. Look at look at that frat house down in Tallahassee. They were getting ready to go broke. Okay. I ain't told you my name was on that bad boy, was it?
There ain't nothing wrong with that.
I invested I had invested some money. I took that money and saved that house. And it's called the Norman J. Clements Educational Center and stuff. In other words, I can't pull it up, man. Pull it up. I'm not going to be a holy bee ghost. You don't see me run around with shirt and ties and, my nose stuck up in the air. I'm Mr. Dude. And I'll just talk about it. I'm Mr. Dude and my Mr. Stay. That's why you asked me a question. That's the last one we'll talk about this, brother. But I got to fight in me, man.
The continuation of this series has to involve the willingness of the lawyer, so we can interview him. The willingness of the brother, the Nigerian brother who had the 5 pharmacies. these are the people we have to bring before the public and strategize off camera as to how we can get this story out and in the hands of people who would run with it. But I want to thank you. How do people get your newsletter?
Okay, just go on the internet and go to UYOUR within the norms.com. Within the norms.com, and you will see all theirs. Right now we got 59 articles in there, articles of generally dealing with healthcare. We are medical care advocates.
You're tuned in to GHCR, Grant House's Community Radio, the soul of the Upper West Side.
We are medical care advocates. Do you hear me there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and there's a very interesting article that was written by an observation, and I had to put it out there. I want to say the algorithm of medical apartheid, of role model, and the invisible people. Our Michelle Alexander put great input to that article after she read the a study that dealt with the discrimination of Black people based on algorithms. In other words, we have to come into a physician's office, even the dental office, a lot more sicker in order to get basic treatment that a person who is non-Black, white, gets. And by just walking in, we have to present to be a lot more sicker. And this is something that Black physicians, Black dentists, pharmacists have recognized. When you are a Black medical healthcare provider, and I'll let you alone after this, the one thing you should notice after maybe a couple of years or maybe a couple of days, okay, is that not only you're treating the pathology of the disease, okay, the disease condition, but you're also treating oppression, all right? And you know where you see that at? Mostly in your mouth, on your skin. Hear me. You see it in the mouth. You know how you see it in the mouth? Missing teeth. You'll see people who had missing teeth, all their back teeth are missing and no fillings, all right? No type of restorative work done, all right? You see it in, for example, you look at me, you see I have mandibular tooth crowding. Well, most kids, my kids had mandibular tooth crowding, they got orthodontics. Well, guess why I didn't get it? Parents didn't have the money, period. And that's what inspired me, that drove me into doing into dentistry. You talk to a lot of dentists, and that's why, because they had the brain, they had the opportunity, and they said, I'm going to do something about it and stuff. You have people, if you don't think oral health, and again, especially with women, okay? If you don't think poor oral health means something, okay, that it affects your body systemically, then we've got an article here that this just came out of some research, not a research, but a class that I was taking. I belong to the American Academy of General Dentistry. It says poor oral health in African American women risk increased pancreatic cancer. Okay, well documented out of Brigham, out of Boston, out of Massachusetts, and they then checked the backgrounds. The incidence of pancreatic cancer is higher in African Americans than U.S. whites. We hypothesize that poor oral health is disproportionately common in African Americans associated with the increase of pancreatic cancer. And then it goes into what they found in Black women. Okay, you got to think about that. You know how it is important, and it's all footnoted. You can pull the oral health relationship risk in African American women, cancer epidemiology, in the cancer epidemiology. It's in your Within the Norms. Pull that up. It's you can see this article, and a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know that, because why? Oppression. We talk, your teeth, I don't mean another damn thing. Periodontal disease, we already know, can cause heart disease, and that, you know, you can result in heart disease, diabetes. You want to drop somebody's blood sugar? You want to drop them? Clean your teeth. Make sure that their teeth are clean. Even the COVID virus. Listen, we got an article in here, several articles in here. You know, we talked about that test, talking about the FDA approved the test. You go to
Yes.
your, we were talking about the oral test. You go to your within the norms, okay? I talked about that in May of this year. There's an article here, right here. It talks about that the Yale study, the study that was done in Sichuan, China. It talks about the ACE2 receptors. It talks about that the SARS-2 virus is and the testing for it is an oropharyngeal disease before it becomes a systemic disease, and it's best detected in the saliva. And we talked about that in 2 articles, starting in April. Here's an article called COVID virus, that it is dentistry that may save your life. And then we wrote one here called Why is Dentistry Being Relegated to the Sidelines and removed and not being utilized for the healthcare army? Talk about that. People need to read
Got
this.
it.
Yes. Trying to me to frighten you.
Got it, brother.
I mean,
Listen,
I know you're the audience, you know.
All the time spent is well worth the time we have spent here this afternoon on August 24, 2020, with our doctor brother. He's got 2 first names, Norman and Clement. And once again,
the middle name,
the link that folks go to for your newsletter.
You are within the norms.com. And
All
on
right,
Facebook is you're within the norms.com. YOU_RE within the norms.com.
Okay, very good. Thank you, my brother. May God continue to bless you, the other pharmacists and their families. And we're definitely in your corner in terms of getting this information out. We look forward to the next interview.
Go viral, brother. That's all I ask, if we can make it go viral, because this impacts all of our healthcare, Black folk and white folk in around this country, but particularly and specifically Black folk and those who practice medicine and dentistry and pharmacy.
Okay, thank you, my brother. This has been the Wisdom Table, once again coming to you from the Grand Houses in Harlem, USA, 125th Street and Amsterdam Avenue. We thank the resident council for allowing us the opportunity to bring this information to you in New York City and beyond. God bless you all. Thank you very much. Peace.
God bless you, Brother Leroy Baylor. You're clear.
GACR.NYC, JWJCR.NYC. You have been listening to the Wisdom Table with Dr. Norman Clements and our very own Brother Leroy. And so they have concluded their programming, and now we'll return to our regularly scheduled programming. Thank you. 95.9 FM.